Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson about the texts in the Paris Anthology and how to compare two texts. Today we're going to look at the Lonely Planet texts. So let's get going. First of all, I want you to pause, find 3 verbs, sort them into present, past and continuous, 5 nouns, proper nouns, common nouns and abstract nouns, and then 8 adjectives. So pause now and do that. Welcome back. Did you get, for the continuous verb, straddles? That one's stuck in my head. It's interesting that it's the bridge that's straddling, but never mind. So hopefully now you've got 3 verbs and you've thought about whether they're happening, have happened, or continuing to happen. Can you find 5 now? You've found the 5 nouns. The proper nouns, remember, are the names of places and people. And the abstract nouns are those nouns that are like feelings or thoughts. So they're not actually things you can see and touch. And your adjectives, and you need to think about whether those adjectives are pre or post modifiers. So we're going to get going with this, thank you. So let's start with the Lonely Planet guide, which is this. The narrator: the city of light is the capital of France and the epitome of romance, culture and beauty. Home to over 2 million people, Paris straddles the river Seine and is divided into 20 districts called arrondissements, each with its own personality. And then you've got a whooshing sound, new, more traditional French music starts. The art of Paris has changed little since the mid-19th century, when its grand boulevards and Art Nouveau apartments were built. Strict planning regulations have preserved its layout. So there it is, Paris City Guide, Lonely Planet, on page 29 of your anthology. So find it, have a look. How well annotated is yours? I'm gonna start with a little bit of annotation. I'm not going to do the annotation yet. So we want you to sort these again. We're thinking about verbs, nouns, adjectives in this Wordle. Sort them all. And what you need to do as you're revising and you're getting your head around these anthology texts is create a table for all of the texts you've studied. What else could you add? You've got verbs, nouns, adjectives. What other word classifications could you add? I think, interestingly, I'd go for the modal verbs. Remember, there's 8 modal verbs: will, should, might, must, would, could, can, may and shall, and they shift the tone of something completely and utterly. And you've also got be, have and do, which are your 3 auxiliary verbs. I'd definitely have a table for those. Adverbs? I think so. See what else you could add to it. But if you made one of these for each of your texts and you put in keywords, don't try and put everything in, but try to put your keywords in, and it will help you to see what sort of tone is being created and how the writer is using language. So we're going to do a little bit of annotation here. Let's start with this narrative is in third person, which suggests an impersonal and unbiased view of Paris. So it's an advert, this, isn't it? It's an advert. Its purpose is primarily to persuade you to go to Paris, to visit it, but also it has this sub-purpose of advertising the Lonely Planet guides. So it's not just an advert for Paris, it's an advert for this travel guide as well. There are patterns of personification, so Paris straddles the river Seine. So Paris sounds like it's a living thing with one foot on either side of the river. Okay, it's a spoken text, so you have the emphasis of words in bold, and you've got the pauses that are indicated there. So this is a transcript of a text. It has sophisticated language, so epitome, which means the most perfect example, fits the very formal register here. Narrator: the city of light is the capital of France. This is not casual, it's not colloquial. It is formal. A video advert, you've got the music, which supports the message. Okay, so it tells you that the music is playing. It tells you at the start that there's a French-style beat-heavy music plays, which supports the advert. Okay. You've got this post-modifying adjective little. Paris has changed little. Combined with the verb preserved reinforces this lack of change. So it really has stayed exactly as it is, okay? You've got stressing the fact, each with its own personality. So nothing has changed. Nothing is merging here. Tradition to these people, to Paris, is vital. It's part of its heritage, okay? So it is. You've got the use of the tricolon of abstract nouns. Emphasises Paris as a personality. The spatial adjective grand suggests both size and that it's impressive and complies with the pattern of admiration implicit in the tone. Okay. You've got the metaphors to make a glowing description of the city. This is a spoken mode text. It's formal and scripted rather than spontaneous. It's an online video with an implied audience of those searching for a holiday. It's a wide audience, a huge audience. The point of view of Paris is very positive. It's a great place to visit. It epitomises culture, romance, and beauty, okay? So now I want you to make sure that you've got the next two paragraphs. So pause and make sure you've got the rest of this text well annotated, so you're thinking about the annotations on that. Welcome back. We're going to compare that now to Paris and Fine French Food, which is another Lonely Planet text. It's on page 146 of your anthology, okay? And it's another transcript. So we'll use the model that we did on the last one, so my annotations for the last one, to find key things you'd say about this text. Remember, you're trying to find 5 points of comparison or difference. You can watch the video down at the bottom there, Paris, the capital of. So you can have a watch while you're thinking about this. But then spend the next 10 minutes or so annotating this in as much detail as you possibly can. You might want at this point to create a table like the one that we created a couple of lessons ago, with a column for each one. So your introduction is going to tell you what sort of text this is for both of them, and then your point 1 is going to be a language feature, and so on. So you're going to have 5 different language features, and then you're going to have a conclusion there. So if you can remember that table, it's a really great way of thinking, right, okay, then I've done it for the first text. Now I'm going to see what I'm going to compare it to in the second text. Don't write it in full sentences this time. Just write yourself notes, bullet points, so that you know what you're doing and you know what you're comparing. So go and do that now. And then come back. Welcome back. So hopefully you've got this all well annotated now. You've thought about it. You've got that table. So you could spend the next 10 minutes making sure you've got that table created so you know exactly what you're going to write about. And remember that this is how it's marked. You've got 3 assessment objectives. So you're thinking about the concepts and methods from your studies, integrated linguistic and literary studies. So you're thinking about linguistic techniques and those 6 language levels. Lexis and semantics, grammar, graphology, phonology, discourse, and I can't remember the other one, but hopefully you've got them all inside your head. You're better at remembering these than I am. But that's what you're thinking about in that first assessment objective. It's worth 15 marks out of 40, so it's quite impressive if you can get that. And you can use appropriate terminology and you're writing coherently, and that table will help you to write coherently and compare well. Your next assessment objective is about the contexts. Okay, so you're thinking about, why was this text written and who's listening to it, and what effect does it have on the person who's listening to it. So you're thinking about why it was produced, and how that changes the way that language is used, okay? So you're thinking about those various forms. So you'll think about your mode in this one as well. And that's worth 15 marks out of 40. Your third assessment objective is the connections between the two. So you're comparing those two. You're thinking about similarities and differences, and you're thinking about how the writers and speakers are presenting plays, how they're creating this idea about Paris. So you are using your concepts and methods, using your language levels to ensure that you can compare in an interesting and perceptive way. So not just mundane, they both use verbs, but you'd be thinking about they're both using modal verbs, and this is the effect of the modal verbs because it's a persuasive text, or whatever it is that you come up with, okay? So that's how it's going to be marked. So what I want you to do now is think about what's the same and what's different about the two texts. What's the purpose of the two texts? Is that the same or is it different? Then you're thinking about how language is used. You're thinking about similarities and differences again, and where this text will appear, similarities and differences. Okay. So this would be a question you'd get. Compare and contrast how the writers and speakers in these extracts present Paris. You should refer to both extracts in your answer and consider the language choices made and their likely effects, the different audiences and purposes of the text, and aspects of mode. They want you to analyse the text, mode of address, multimodal, sound, visual, or written. And they also want you to think about context, purpose, audience, and text producer. And then 5 language features, okay? So we've got the Paris Fine French Food and Paris City Guide. And what we want is 5 similarities or 5 similarities / differences. And then plan using the examples and connectives. And I think your plan should be that table that you've created. That is your plan, because that leads you to compare 5 different things and to write in detail about them. So this is your transcript. And that's the end of the lesson, okay? So I want you to go away and make sure that you do have a very detailed plan from that. And when you've finished that plan, can you upload it to Teams, please, so we can have a look at it? Remember, what we're aiming for here is that you're going to eventually write us your very best piece of writing on the Paris Anthology. So you'll be comparing 2 extracts. So that's what we're after for you. It's this, initially for the next week or so, we're going to think about planning, comparing extracts, what makes them different, what makes them the same. And then we'll get round to giving you an actual question and leaving you to plan it and write it on your own. It'll take you all of a Friday afternoon to do it. But what we're aiming for is your very best work. So thank you, and I shall see you all soon.